Hello and welcome to Eavesdropping at the Movies. I'm Mike.
And I'm José.
We saw The Party.
Yes, I didn't like it.
It was the last screening of it. It's by Sally Potter, whose name I know and whose significance I'm aware of, but I've never seen a film by her.
Yes, I think. Well, I don't know if I've seen them all, but I've seen quite a lot. I saw Gold Diggers, The Tango Lesson. Orlando is the only one that I really like of hers. Though, I think it is inarguable that she's one of the most important figures in British cinema of the last 30, 40 years, particularly because of her interventions, I suppose, into feminist and queer cinema, really. Some of whose traces we find in The Party. So, like the film itself both recalls those other aspects of her work and I suppose tries to put it into a kind of a contemporary frame and kind of looks back on some of the earlier debates. So
what's The Party about?
The Party is about so the film is a farce. It starts off as a celebration of a woman who's just been named Shadow Minister for Health. Her friends assemble for the celebration, and I suppose, like in all farces / drawing room comedies, a whole bunch of things happen. Revelations are made, relationships are reframed, and in this particular film, a whole bunch of ideas are aired and ironized and poked fun at, I suppose.
I would have said it's about an act too short.
Well, that too.
First thing I said when it ended was, that was brief.
Yes.
Which it was. 71 minutes. And it's not to say that it's... it just ends abruptly. I thought that there was more to come. I thought that everything that would happen in the film was going to pay off.
Yes.
And
well, there was a payoff.
There is a payoff of a sort, but it stopped when I thought the story would continue.
Well, I was going to say it's a clever payoff, though actually it's a very traditional and cliched payoff, really.
How so?
Well, because the person... Okay, there's this subplot in which there's a revelation that the minister is actually having this hot affair. And then when her husband reveals that he's been having a hot affair with this woman who actually loves him, blah, blah, blah. And actually this woman's husband is at this party out with a gun to kill the minister's husband. And then at the end, it's become clear that the minister is also having an affair with the same woman. It's Marianne who's at the door.
Yeah. The last line of the film makes that clear. It's not become clear before that, really.
Yes.
But you thought that was clever?
Well, I was going to say, I started off by saying it was clever, and then I realized, well, it's a cliche of the genre, really, Like, I mean, the only thing that makes it slightly different is that, it's a woman. So the film has this very open idea about sexuality and so on, yeah? Mm. But
I would say that it would be a kind of revelation if it felt like it mattered. Like it's like there's been so little work put into it that it's not that it doesn't make sense, but it doesn't matter. You just go, oh, okay. And then...
I think the thing that I dislike about Sally Potter's films, which I suppose is something that other people might like very much about her films, but I think it's slightly amateurish, really. I think there's an amateurish quality to the whole thing.
That's interesting.
So, kind of this has brilliant actors.
Wonderful cast.
Yeah, wonderful cast.
We keep saying that recently.
I know.
All these films have great casts.
Well, they do. Well, they do. I mean, it is true. And actually, it has some good jokes, I suppose. Yeah, people in the cinema did laugh.
People laughed. I laughed.
You laughed, yeah.
Quite a lot. I enjoyed it.
I know you did, yeah. I think it's a trifle, and I think it has so many awkwardnesses.
Yes.
So it's got all these jokes that people laugh, and at the same time, it feels kind of, unpolished, like unthought through, thin.
Yeah, kind of. Well, there are parts of it that are sort of the like the scaffolding is kind of on display in the writing. Like you get these moments where obviously so Kristen Scott Thomas's character Janet has become Shadow Minister for Health, and that's a huge deal, and that's why this party is happening. And obviously that's hugely important to her, and the characters talk about what they've given up to do this and how hard she's worked and so on, and what an idealist she is about that. But they do occasionally kind of go into these sort of tangents about, and of course it's very important that we have the NHS, and it's like, well, that's really their what people don't talk like that.
Yeah,
it's not very natural, and it seems like it's there for the audience.
Well, it's almost like it's almost like the director's personal dilemmas, which to a certain extent are the dilemmas of a generation, are kind of being voiced, which I suppose is a good thing.
Yeah.
Except that they're somehow not made relevant. Like I
no,
don't
it's
care.
like they're name dropped.
Yeah, so it's like there's a reference to an idea that isn't fully fleshed out. And also, I mean, there are certain things that just kind of cinematically I didn't understand. So why is this film in black and white? I don't get it. Like kind of it's not particularly, it doesn't feel like it's the choice for a particular type of expression. I just don't get, what black and white brings to it. I also think that, if it is meant to be a farce or a drawing room comedy, I think there were things that just could have been a lot better, and actually there are pleasures of the genre that could have been brought out, and it seems silly to say so, but
I suppose it's not really a flat out farce, is it? I mean, it is trying to be dramatic as well. It's not these characters aren't set up, and then these revelations aren't brought out purely for the sake of comedy. You're supposed to connect with the characters on a dramatic level.
Good farce is played on a certain kind of level. Yeah, it's like, I think it's at the level that Cillian Murphy's playing it. Yeah, it's a bit broad and so on. So anyway, if it is meant to be a farce, I think certain things should have been paid more attention to.
Yeah,
I
think it certainly is up to a point.
Yeah,
it is. Yeah.
So, and actually, but I think you're right in the sense that in a way it doesn't maintain its tone. So sometimes it's played like, really high, and sometimes it's brought down to kind of like a realist kind of way of playing, and it's disjunctive and it doesn't quite cohere.
I didn't feel that. I mean, I feel exactly the same about that. It's trying to shift its tone, but I thought it was quite successful at it.
Okay.
I was engrossed by it. So when it was attempting to be funny, for the most part, I found it funny. I think some of the jokes are a little bit forced, particularly April, the Patricia Clarkson character.
Yeah,
she's quite cynical, and she juts in with a few barbs every now and again, and sometimes they're a little bit forced.
Yes.
But a lot of the time,
her husband, the aromatherapist.
Well, I hated him, but at the same time, I think it's I think that the characters that I hate. So there are 7 characters in this, right? There's Emily Mortimer as Jenny. There's Cillian Murphy as Tom. Kristen Scott Thomas as Janet. Cherry Jones as Martha. Timothy Spall is Bill. Patricia Clarkson's April, and Bruno Ganz is Gottfried.
My God, you have such a fantastic memory.
I'm reading it.
Okay.
and all the characters, one or two characters I wasn't interested in as characters. But probably 3 of them, from the moment they appeared on screen, I was going, "Who are you? I want to know everything about you." Bill particularly, his wandering eyes at the start and his face. I wanted to know everything about who this guy is and where he got to where he was. I think there are these.
Is Bill the Timothy Spall character?
Yes, yeah. Yes. There are these precise kind of characterizations that well, they're kind of minimalist, but they suggest so much.
They do suggest much, but actually, I think he was playing on a completely different register, than some of the other characters. I think he was like playing in a very realist mode, whereas Kristen Scott Thomas was being very ironic and funny and kind of a little bit high, like she was.
But I think the contrast actually it's more almost than the sum of its parts. I felt it brought something out. It wasn't that everyone was kind of acting all in the same way. The clashes between them, I enjoyed.
No, I didn't. I found them disjunctive.
Okay, well maybe it's a taste thing. I mean, I thought it was quite skillful, kind of well handled filmmaking. Like I say, the main problem I have with it is that I thought the story would end properly. I didn't think it did. And I think that that there is kind of some clumsiness or kind of unrefined aspect to the dialogue. But I think all the actors, the way they play off each other is fantastic. I do like the look of the film. I think it felt right that it was in black and white. I don't think it's particularly saying anything, but I feel like all of these films, these chamber pieces, are these kind of stripped down things, and I think that black and white kind of felt appropriate. I guess I think it's a feeling more than anything else. If it had been in color, it probably would have felt right as well. It had a nice look, and I liked it. I enjoyed watching it. I think it brought out kind of the stubble on Timothy Spall's face and his eyes darting around, this beautiful close-up that was repeated on him. I enjoyed a great deal. I think it looks very nice. It's well lit.
Yes, I didn't like that aspect of it at all. I kind of I thought it was banal, really. And I also didn't like. I thought it was the kind of comedy, that a certain type of, middle class, white liberal, will find an echo of their concerns in, really, and they chuckle out of a kind of a recognition. And so, there was like a lot of like chuckling of appreciation from the audience. But I thought the point of the chuckling was just, that they saw an echo of conversations that they sometimes had. But actually, I thought the film didn't dramatize them very well. It didn't make them comic, in any kind of original or even consistent fashion. And I hate the kind of smugness that you sense coming out of it, actually.
No, again, I didn't feel... How? What kind of smugness?
Well, the being right on certain issues, all of the conversations about, the lesbians having the triplets and that kind of thing. The conversations about the NHS, that kind of stuff.
What was right on, for instance, about the lesbians having the triplets? What was right on about that?
Well, the way that they talked about feminism of a certain era, the way that they said, well, I thought we were over like hating men, that kind of stuff.
I thought it tried to undercut itself a lot of the time. I felt like it was self-aware enough to know when it was kind of doing that, and then it would undercut it with, particularly with who is it, April. But I thought for instance, the lesbians having the triplets was got into a kind of genuine area of drama where one of them was really not happy about it and felt like she was going to lose her partner to these children.
Yes,
that's a genuine story to be told.
Yes, yes. Well,
it felt kind of real to me.
It is undoubtedly real, But again, that's what I mean about it being an echo, because really, kind of, what is it doing that you wouldn't already have known, or kind of what area of emotion did you go into, or actually did you feel it intensely when they were doing it? Did you, were you moved by it?
Yeah, I kind of was moved by it.
Okay, well, in that case, it's a success. I mean, for me, it wasn't. I kind of, I sneered slightly.
Yeah.
And kind of...
I mean, what it comes down to at the end is I felt like I wanted 20 minutes more. I wanted it to end properly, as opposed to abruptly. I think it starts off with this shot of Kristen Scott Thomas aiming this gun at the screen, opening the front door, aiming a gun at the screen at the audience.
I thought it was
and then it ends on that shot again, and it feels unfulfilling at the very end.
I thought it was kind of bourgeois, amateurish kind of self-congratulation, really.
I've got to say, I didn't feel that. Normally I'm quite attuned, because I fucking hate when things feel smug.
Well,
I feel it a lot, but I didn't feel it with this.
Okay, well, kind of, maybe it's just me.
I felt like a failure in some respects, but for the most part, bunch of good actors heading towards somewhere where it just stopped too early.
Well, I mean, the actors were the best bit about it. I mean, I think there's no, it's kind of a treat to see them, really. And some of them are doing well. Some of them. Kirsten Scott Thomas does very subtle things. And then I think Timothy Spall, working in a completely different register. I mean, he could have been playing this character in a Ken Loach film and it wouldn't have been out of place, right? Which I think is a problem to me. But anyway, within that register, you can feel like a kind of a depth of pain, and so like he is communicating things, right? So it's kind of a pleasure to see him on its own, though to me it really kind of doesn't work in relation to the ensemble. The other actors who I like very much and are often a thrill to watch, I thought again they were slightly off. So I thought Cillian Murphy was like acting too high. He was too exaggerated, really. It sometimes came off, but it didn't always land. Patricia Clarkson was off, really. And maybe that's just because she's American, but she seemed to belong to kind of a different movie. And actually, you didn't quite know what she was doing there.
I think it's the writing of her character. I think she plays it pretty much in a sort of sensible way, I guess. But her character is just working too hard to be the funniest one in the room. You would be annoyed if she was there in real life.
Yeah.
You go, just pipe it down.
Anyway, I don't know. Maybe
Timothy Spall. I thought that was the kind of incongruity of his kitchen sink. I'm about to die. Eyes darting over the room, kind of thing, and coming out with these revelations of why I'm sleeping with her, and then everyone else kind of but he does it with the that kind of that sort of dour sort of tone, and then Bruno Gans and Cillian Murphy kind of explode around him in their heightened way. Like I enjoyed that. I thought that's the kind of clash I'm talking about.
Right.
I think that I thought that I like that. I thought that was good. I thought it was handled nicely.
Well, maybe I'm prejudiced. I mean, that is possible. I mean, I think I loved Orlando. I think that's a truly great film. But what the things that I hated about the tango lesson, though it was much more exacerbated in the tango lesson, are what I'm referring to here. Her casting herself as the central role of this British artist who goes to Argentina, and falls in love with a much younger man who's like this expert tango dancer, and so on. I mean, and I thought she was like excruciatingly gauche, and then the tangos were not danced very well, and they could have been so much better danced by someone who was a professional dancer, and it just felt like so egocentric to cast yourself in that way. So and it was also it had an odd tone, because on the one hand it was egocentric, on the other one it was excruciatingly embarrassing to watch, because she wasn't up to it, and yet she was opening herself up to ridicule, and there was something quite raw about that. But on the other hand, it was ridiculous, or I found it ridiculous. So maybe some of that feeling seeps into
I think that can
my
definitely
viewing
happen.
of this film.
I felt the same way about Kenneth Branagh. All I remember, my first experience with Kenneth Branagh was watching his Shakespeare movies at school, because you'd always ask, "Sir, can we put on the video?" Because it meant you didn't have to do any work. You put on the video, and it was his version of Much Ado About Nothing, I think, with Benedict and Beatrice.
I remember seeing that, yes.
And I think he might have done one or two others. And I just thought, this is smug. And I think he directed them as well. So
yes.
Fuck you, Kenneth Branagh. But then, I
broke up with someone over Much Ado About Nothing. Yes. I thought, if you think this is a great film, we have nothing to talk about.
I came across him really smug to me, and then I saw him when he was promoting Dunkirk. I saw him on the Late Show with Stephen Colbert, and he was fantastic and really just nice and charming person. I thought, maybe I was wrong about this guy, and now I sort of get along with him. But I think it's perfectly possible to just bring those prejudices in.
Yeah.
I'm not. None of this is to say, you're wrong to feel the way you do, because this is clearly a taste thing.
Yeah.
We both saw the same film,
yes.
and we just took it differently.
We did. So and yeah, and I think it is. Maybe I should underline. Sally Potter really is one of the most significant figures in British cinema of the last 40 years. I think her interventions in Gold Diggers initially, and subsequently in Orlando are really important. They're really important to feminism. They're really important to kind of, queer representation. And particularly Orlando has been a very meaningful film to a whole bunch of people, right? So I think I'm open to the possibility that this film can be read and enjoyed in different ways, than I am open to.
Yeah.
But I must say, I kind of squirmed throughout it.
Fair enough. I guess it kind of feels like a shame just because I enjoyed it. What I will say is that it's a shame that it feels so insubstantial when it comes to the end. It feels like it's approaching ideas. It's approaching kind of, political ideas for one thing, and ideas of kind of modern British society and the way the government has fucked people. It's fairly open about that. It never goes so far as to say Labour and Conservative, but it's quite clear that
It's Labour.
she's as the shadow Minister for Health, she's a part of the Labour Party, and they talk about going against the fighting the profiteering bastards on the other side, essentially, which is about as clear as anyone's come since. What was that film we saw? The one about all the students at Eton. Remember it though, the Riot Club.
Yes.
Riot Club, which is essentially a sort of parody of the Bullingdon Club.
Yeah.
It's probably the most kind of politically sort of upfront film since then.
Well, I don't know. There was that Ken Loach film. Or
of course,
Daniel
no, you're quite
Blake,
right. Forgot that.
Which actually, because it made me think. Because I really criticized Ken Loach, but there was something. I don't know if I saw it with you.
You did, yeah. The guy stood up.
Where the guy stood up and said, "What did he say? I'm embarrassed to be British."
He said, "We're the 5th richest country in the world, and this is a disgrace."
And this is a disgrace. That's right.
And he was wrong with the 9th richest at the time.
Okay, well,
pre-Brexit.
But imagine a film.
Yeah, I know.
Drawing that reaction, from what was clearly also a working class person, actually. So I was thinking, here I am kind of criticizing him, and yet he makes films that kind of make people feel that way, right? Yeah. To just stand up in the cinema. That was a brilliant moment.
It wasn't so clear
actually.
that the guy who stood up was working class.
Oh yes, I thought so. I thought he was a pensioner, and without much means. I thought.
I didn't get that. I thought he was wearing a shirt.
That's what we've come to.
He might well have been middle class.
It's like Dickens. You have a shirt.
He was wearing the shirt. He wasn't there. He wasn't scruffy. Scruffy, was he?
Be that as it may, it was
anyway.
it was one of those incredible moments in a movie theater. That you witness that kind of a reaction. So anyway, there you go.
Yeah. There was only a few of us in that screening as well. There was only about 4 of us.
I know.
He just,
it felt particularly dramatic. Actually,
it was moved to. Yeah, no. But all this to say that in the party, anything aiming in that direction, despite the fact that it's quite upfront in some respects, is ultimately insubstantial. It doesn't add up to anything.
Everything is insubstantial. I mean, if you read The Guardian, nothing the film says will come as any surprise or revelation to you. And that's why I think it's part of the film's smugness, right? Because kind of in drama, you kind of want, to hint at something else other than just the conveyance of received opinion, which I think is what this film does.
I didn't even think it was just trying to say anything. It was just a nice story about 7 people that stopped each other. I thought,
and normally you're the one who is like, let's not praise this too much, but
yeah, well, but everything in moderation. Don't have a go at it too much.
Okay. On that note, let's leave it here.
Too short though, isn't it?
It is too short.
Yeah.